Hi everyone, I'm Beth Wanner from Mothercover, and we're diving into the four pillars of parental leave. And today we're talking about policy and clarity, which is often the foundation for parental leave. Many companies technically have a parental leave policy, but the experience employees actually have can vary widely depending on how clearly that policy is communicated and implemented. So today I'm joined by Samantha Saxby, Head of Engagement and Managing Director of PERKY. At PERKY, Samantha works closely with employers to design personalized employee experiences through benefits education and decision support. So she has a really valuable perspective on why policies sometimes fall short in practice and what organizations can do to create a clearer, more supportive experience. So Samantha, thank you so much for joining me. I never asked Sam or Samantha.
Either one is fine. Yeah.
Okay, well, as Bethany or Beth, I feel that.
Awesome. Yes. Thank you so much for having me. I'm super excited for our chat today.
Amazing. Well, let's dive right in and let's start with the gap between policy and experience. So many companies, technically, as I said, have a parental leave policy, and whether that's paid or not, but employees still often feel confused about what is actually available to them. Where do you see things most often break down between what is written in the policy and what employees actually experience?
Yeah, it's a great question to start with. So, the breakdown happens because leave policies are often written to meet legal and compliance requirements, right? Not necessarily to guide an employee through the real life experience of taking leave. Most employees actually start trying to understand their leave options about 3 to 4 months before their anticipated due date if we're talking about parental leave. So we know that. It's been proved in user data from a plethora of PERKY users. And so when the policy language tends to focus on eligibility, rules, and protections, that's great and that's compliant. But employees at this time are usually just trying to answer two simple questions. How much time do I get off and is it paid? And that's what they want to know first. And so the breakdown happens because a parental leave policy does not automatically equal the employee experience design. Parental leave is one of the biggest life events an employee will experience at work. But most policies are written like a reference document instead of a guide employees can understand how those policies apply to them. And so that's where I think the initial breakdown starts and affects everything downstream for the employee experience.
That's a very good point of like, this was kind of more of that checkbox to meet that compliance um, need. But this is an experience that is very human and needs that human element to match. Let's talk about what it looks like when an organization gets that right. So when a parental leave policy is truly clear and supportive, what feels different about it from both the employees and managers? What are kind of the signals that a company actually has thought through how the policy works in practice, not just in paper?
A signal that a company has thought through how the policy works in practice is when employees know what to do next. Meaning, when a policy is truly clear, employees get the specific information they're looking for at that time and have a clear understanding of who to talk to or what to do next in the planning process. So employees know the timeline, the paperwork requirements, and who they should talk to at each step throughout the leave process. And so the best policies recognize that employees, again, start their leave planning 3 to 4 months before their due date and give them guidance during that window. I will also say the most intuitive companies go one step further and recognize that employees may want to learn that information privately or anonymously before there is any disclosure to the employer. When we talk about employees looking for information privately or anonymously, it's really important to note that when employees research their parental leave options privacy, it is not a reflection of whether they trust HR. It is simply a moment where people want to understand their options before they start a conversation at work. Or stated another way, when employees are empowered by you to research parental leave privately, it's a way that your organization is giving space for how people naturally process big life decisions.
That's a really good call out of you might not be ready to disclose something yet, or you might just be in the planning process. You might not even
Mhm.
be expecting a leave yet, or we hear of more and more individuals who see the leave policy as a reflection of culture as
Mhm.
well too. I want to see that, not necessarily because I'm planning a leave, but I want to see how we're treating that important life moment for my colleagues maybe.
Absolutely. It's table stakes at this point with the employees today.
One of the challenges that we hear is around inconsistency. We talk about the manager lottery. So, managers are often left trying to interpret policies on their own. So, how can organizations create more consistency so employers are not having to completely, or employees are not having completely different experiences depending on who they report to?
Yeah, so consistency is the magic word here. The most helpful thing organizations can do to create more consistency for their managers is to create a consistent starting point for leave conversations. So when every employee, manager, HR starts with the same information, it reduces the chance that different managers are going to give different answers. So I think this comes with an acknowledgement that managers shouldn't have to be policy interpreters. Give employees a space to learn about their benefits, their potential income, the timelines, the administration requirements, so that the managers can focus on supporting the employee as a human being going through a monumentally human being experience. And so, consistency doesn't come from asking consistency doesn't come from asking managers to memorize policy details. It comes from giving everyone, again, employee, manager, HR, a shared starting point that is accurate, but more importantly, easy for everyone to understand how it applies to that specific employee and that employee's specific leave situation.
So even the best policies doesn't mean much if employees don't feel comfortable taking it. We talked about feeling comfortable looking for it, but what can leadership do to set the tone that employees genuinely feel safe taking the leave that is available to them?
I love this question. So, one of the strongest signals that leadership can send to encourage employees to feel genuinely safe taking leave is normalizing those early conversations about an upcoming leave. So, again, we know employees are looking to start planning their parental leave 3 to 4 months before their due date. So, leadership should make it clear that those conversations are welcome and expected. Leadership can help by framing parental leave as something the organization plans for, not something employees have to feel guilty about. So, this can be done by proactively communicating if a resource is available as that starting point, like we discussed. And with today's employees, the biggest signal of support, again, isn't necessarily that policy. It's whether employees feel like taking parental leave is expected by leadership and then planned for by the organization.
Throwing this one at you, but are you seeing any trends in how parental leave policies are evolving beyond just this is how much time you can take, this is the paid portion? Do you see anything being included around flexibility, anything like that?
Absolutely. I mean, the PWFA has really upped the ante in terms of the need to be compliant. And so it's really shined a bright light again on ADA and the need to really support expecting employees throughout their whole experience. And so, if I'm answering your question right, I think the PWFA is something to really stay on top of here and really ensure that you're supporting your employees through that ADA specific lens.
Do you see changes to parental leave policies around more inclusive language, more different paths to becoming parents, also more gender neutral policies?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think the last, I would say, couple of years, a lot of employers have done a lot of work taking a look at their policy language and taking a critical look at the language that they're using and making sure that it is inclusive, that it is supportive of their employees. I really think the industry and employers have done a really great job at updating those policies. I do think the market is now at a point where, okay, how do those updated policies affect the employees and how do those updated policies affect productivity for those employers? And so those are really the bigger, I think, impacts of the policy updates that we've seen in the last couple of years.
It's great to see it progress in that way.
Yeah.
For organizations that want to improve their parental leave experience this year, what is one practical change they could make to make their policy clearer and more trustworthy for employees?
Yeah, so it's a great question. So I think the most practical improvement companies can make if they want to make their parental leave policy more clearer and more trustworthy this year is giving employees a resource to learn about their leave options. So the applicable policies, benefits, again, potential income, and next steps before the employee decides to disclose to their organization. Again, I will say it till I'm blue in the face. Most employees, they're researching their options about 3 to 4 months before their due date. That is 3 to 4 months of time that you can leverage for the common good for every stakeholder that's involved here. And so they're just wanting to know in the beginning stages, how much time can I take? What might be paid? And what are the next steps? And so HR leaders are often very, very approachable, but employees want to understand the basics privately before they start those conversations. And so when employees can learn about their benefits and timelines ahead of time, those conversations with managers and HR become much more productive. Managers can focus on supporting the employee actually taking leave, the productivity of their team and the business, and also the morale of the team of those employees that may be affected while an employee is taking leave. So again, when employees can plan ahead, everything from team coverage to paperwork to productivity becomes much smoother downstream.
I love that call out and connection of if the policy is clearer and understood and looked at earlier, the conversations can shift to the actual plan. Mm-hmm. Love that. So similar vein, but maybe a bit more broad. What is an action companies should take as we're closing out Women's History Month to better support parents taking leave in general? What's something that you would suggest?
I like this question. I've been debating my answer. I do think in the most a simple question that organizations should ask themselves is, do my employees have a place to understand their leave options, how and if they'll be paid, without having to raise their hand at work first? And I'm going to go a step further and say if your answer today is yes, it's the employee handbook or your parental leave policy written in a couple sentences, then the real answer is no. And so that no is affecting your employee experience, manager consistency, and productivity. So in my mind, if there's one action to take, look at that. Start there. It's a low lift, high impact action that, again, everything downstream gets a whole lot easier.
Glad you called that out because I think a lot of people would have been like, yeah, it is accessible and available. It's in the handbook. So good call out. Sam, thank you for joining. Thank you for sharing your perspective. I'm so excited to be able to share these pillars with everyone and share your expertise. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me.